and welcome to yet another edition of Anime Review. This is Zach Reese, your host. The day, July 29, 2018, and I'm joined, as always, by Nusha
Yo,
and Deanna.
Hello.
Hello. So yes, it's been yet another eventful week in anime. Uh, boy, things are
sorry.
getting kind of crazy. Getting kind of crazy. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I thought you said it was another week in Anime Boy, and I was like, hold on.
And then the big boy anime season. I don't know. It's been kind of nuts because I mean, obviously, we've only been doing this podcast for a few weeks now, and some of these shows that we're getting into, this is like the first time I've really sat down and had a set schedule in terms of anime that I want to watch. Because I mentioned before that like I had gone about 18 months, if not 2 years, without watching any kind of anime, and now that I'm back into it and watching it kind of religiously like this, because we're doing this podcast where I kind of make myself watch these shows. In some cases, like, I'm more than happy to. It's been kind of great. It's been putting me in a much better mood than I typically have been because of that, and it just reminds me how much I appreciate anime in my life. I don't know about you guys.
I definitely had to binge 11 episodes yesterday, and I'm not used to thinking like, oh, I have to watch it because I have to talk about it on Sunday. But I still enjoy it. There's definitely worse things I could be crunching to do on time.
Part of me wants.
I've
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've been watching anime religiously for a while now, and I always watch it when the episode comes out, so I have something to look forward to. I don't really like binge it all in one day like you guys.
Part of
I
me.
think I need to start doing that too.
Yeah, part of me is just that I got a lot of free time before work, and so part of me wants to like bring like a tablet and just sit in my car and catch up, so I don't have to like as you said, crunch it all together last night like I did, because I've been super addicted to another game, No Man's Sky, and so trying to like watch anime while also thinking a lot about the game that I've been playing, it's not really good for your health, and so I might want to do something like that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it because there's a lot to talk about in terms of the anime that we saw this week. So of course you guys added well, at least Deanna added a couple shows to her schedule. People may recognize from last week. We got We Rent Suku Mogami. I don't know Japanese. And both of you
Really
guys added
shows.
on Attack on Titan season 3. We didn't talk about Attack on Titan at all last week, did we?
No, I think this was the first episode. It came out Sunday, and we like recorded already at that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let's just go ahead and get right into it then, because I think it's important that we maybe start off hot and talk about what happened in this episode, the first episode. So I myself have not watched Attack on Titan since like maybe late. I think I got through season 1. I did not watch any of season 2. And so how's the season 3 been for you guys? I'll let Deanna start things off. Yeah.
She's dead.
Oh, well, rest in peace. How about you, Nusha? How's it been? Oh, Deanna's internet died. Okay, that
I
might
just got a text.
explain it. Okay. All right, Nusha, you kick things off then.
All right. Yeah, it was an interesting episode. I honestly I watched the first season, and then when the first season ended, I started reading it, and I think because of that, I didn't have like an urge to watch season 2 because I already knew what happened. But once
Sure.
season 2 ended, it caught up to where I was at the manga. So I decided I'd pick up season 3. And honestly, I was really surprised by how light the tone started out. Like the opening scene is like the whole crew like cleaning up and trying to make the place presentable and nice before Levi comes home. And it's just like a really like
What?
lighthearted scene. Like you watched season 1, right?
Yeah, of course they did that
Okay,
sometimes.
yeah.
I'm cleaning.
Yeah. And so they also brought back the bit of Sasha like hiding food in her bag or something like that. And like there was a lot of like really lighthearted moments, and like even the opening wasn't so like bombastic and like epic and grand scale. It was kind of like light and reserved. And I wonder if that's because maybe this like first core of the season is going to be more focused on like character development and not so much like action. But
Yeah, but you can have character development and have a bombastic theme song. I don't know.
definitely, yeah.
I love Sasha,
But
and
I'm
I
just
think it's
wondering.
great. But like the way they interwove that stuff was kind of what made the first season so interesting. So I don't know.
Yeah, and like something that I actually learned was the author or the creator apparently when he was writing the bits that are going to be in season 3, he was like really burned out and tired, and apparently he wasn't happy with like the quality of the stuff that came out. I think it's
Oh,
volumes 13 to 16. And so when he spoke with the studio working on the anime, he like gave them revisions to the manga that he had wished he could have done for the series. And
wow.
so they're actually like rearranging beats of the story according to what he wanted to do at the time, but didn't have like the energy and like the motivation at the time to do. So we're going to be getting a different story very slightly to like the actual manga, but it's going to be something more in line with what the author actually wanted. So I'm kind of excited to see how that plays out.
That sounds pretty cool. Deanna, I think you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay. We were just going over the first episode of Attack on Titan season 3 and talking about, of course, the more lighthearted nature of the way the show is being presented now. What's your take on this so far?
Yeah, I was surprised with the kids in the beginning when they were like cleaning the house, like, and they're like super afraid of Levi coming back and finding out that they didn't do a good job. I thought that was great, and it was just like, like we know things are gonna get serious, but just to have those lighthearted moments, it's just really nice to get back into.
It just reminds me I need to catch up on that show. So that's Attack on Titan season 3, the first episode. So obviously the second episode airing today, but we're only covering the first one. We'll cover episode 2 next week, so people want to check that out. Let's move into a different show that's kind of we were talking about not being so serious. Let's talk about Angels of Death, because boy, this show. So last week we talked about how there was this boy who's this graveyard keeper who digs graves of his victims and basically claims ownership on anything that he buries. This is still getting into the kind of the I don't want to say like scary, but it's kind of off the wall humor that mixes in with the horror aspects. So I'm kind of fascinated by it. So this whole episode was that even starting off, it has its like cute moments to sort of offset the far more serious nature of the show, like the chat about the picklocking to the mugshots that they took. Like they're having some form of fun here, and I think that's important for a show like this to have, not to take itself too seriously, because when you get that point, it just becomes kind of boring, a little too bland for this. But you kind of connect easier with the characters if it's like, even in this very dire situation, there's some humor about it, like how Zach needs to be constantly reminded about what not to do, and yet he does it anyway, like not to hit the iron bars, and he's like he hits it anyway, and everyone's just like, ugh. All right. And of course, this character here, Kathy, she's got some pretty fascinating moments, like the parts where you can just see her sort of sadistic side. It's kind of interesting because it's voiced by Maria Ise, who's the voice of Killua from Hunter x Hunter. And so I thought that was kind of interesting to hear the voice of her coming out like that. And apparently Zach is superhuman, I noticed, because he can take an electric chair shot like a billion times and yet still survive it all. So I don't know.
Nah, he's fine. He's fine.
Yeah, he's apparently a monster, and that's all you need to say in context to let him know that he can stand anything. But what was your opinion on this episode, Nusha?
I was actually pleasantly surprised. Like I think I talked about the last episode last week, and I was kind of underwhelmed.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't really big on it, but this episode kind of like addressed all those concerns. Like I think I can see why people got into this show so much, or the game originally, because we're seeing a lot more of like the lighthearted, like comedic bits with Ray and Zach, and I thought those were really, really cool. They were really funny, really interesting, and I got to see like that dynamic play out. And one of my main concerns the last episode was I thought the floor itself wasn't really like indicative of what like what the villain on that floor was like, it didn't like mirror their personality, but this one was totally reflected like her crazy personality. Yeah, she's all about like punishment and like answering for your crimes, and so her thing's set up as like a jail cell, and like they take mug shots, and then there's like a public executioning puzzle. And then I'm hoping, because the whole like message behind this floor is like paying for your sins and paying for what you've done, I'm hoping we're gonna get a little more insight into like what Zach did like in the past, because we know he's a criminal, and we also see that Rachel kind of responds strangely to the word criminal when she hears it behind those bars. So I'm wondering if maybe there's a reason she's in the floor as well, or in this scenario with all these killers. So I'm excited to see how that all plays out. And I was really happy with this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like speculate too much because I feel like I might be spoiling it like inadvertently, even if I don't know what's going to happen. And so, it does feel like Rachel is feeling some sense of guilt, responsibility, and it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. For Zach, they did talk a little bit about it before that he hates people who lie, and so I wonder if maybe he's been wronged, seriously wronged in the past, and he's carrying that with him. And
We just know he's a serial killer, right?
yeah, we have some insight. Like I said, like that woman that he I think she tried to like come on to him, and he's like, I hate liars, and killed her. That one, like I think I forget what part it was, but like there was like a flashback, I think it was, and one of like the episode or two ago. And so,
right.
Yeah. So they kind of address it, but very broadly. But yeah, it makes me want to, once I'm done with this show, maybe makes me want to go back and play the game because it is available, and I'd like to check it out for myself. But for now, yeah, she says she has like a lot more punishment games to come, like more ways to punish people, and so I wonder how long this will go. I was happy that at least they did not give her that treatment I mentioned last time, where it's like one episode done, the character's gone, now I'm yeah, this is gonna, there was a cliffhanger, an important one too, and so I'd like to know more about this Kathy person, and hopefully she gets some more development, because at least with what was Eddie's character, the boy from last week, he got some development, but you wish there was more. So I'm glad at least they were giving this person some more approach. But to be fair, I don't know how much more they could have done with Eddie. With Kathy, though, I think they could do something better with her. So we'll see.
I mean, Eddie had like all that backstory that you mentioned from the manga. Like if they included even a tiny bit of that, I would have been a little more invested in his character.
Yeah, but
So
it wasn't.
They do that with Kathy.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair though, his character wasn't developed in the game either. It was just the manga. So like, maybe if they would have adapted it, but yeah, like they did not apparently talk much about him in the game either. So I don't know if this is more about the game, indicative of the game rather than the manga. So we'll have to see, I guess. I don't know about the timing of when that was being made with this as well. So hopefully we'll get something out of that. So now we can bring Deanna back into this, and we can talk about Banana Fish, because I'm doing this in alphabetical order to make it easier for people to follow along. So how was this show so far for you, Deanna?
No one is safe. I'll just come out and say that right now.
This is unrelated to the episode, right? You're just saying this.
Oh, just a warning going out.
Yeah, no one is safe.
Jesus Christ.
Listen, everyone listening right now.
She loses her internet, she goes crazy. I get it.
But this episode, it definitely slowed down a bit. And I think it brought out some like tension that needed to be addressed, especially between Ash and Max, who were like cellmates in prison. So yeah, I guess I don't know if I should say like who died in this episode. Is that okay?
You just say maybe.
I feel like we've been spoiling.
Yeah. Okay.
we are doing reflection, so if people don't want to be spoiled, I mean, they probably don't want to recap episode like, but you might want to skip a
your spoiler
or something like that. But yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Spoiler warning then. Griffin dies, and Griffin is.
Wait,
Ash.
what?
Wow.
Wait, Nusha, I thought you watched it.
No, I watched it.
So yeah, he dies, and that brings about the tension between Ash and Max, because they both Ash being the younger brother and Max being like an old comrade from war. So I think I thought both of them reacted to his death in a way that aligned with their character, and it was heartbreaking to see when Ash was like telling Max all about what he knew about Banana Fish, and he was like saying, I don't know why I'm telling you all of this. And then it kind of showed how Ash pretty much lost everything, because his brother was kind of like his anchor. But we also get to see more of Shorter, and he had this Chinese disguise in the previous episode, but now like he's finally taking some action. But I'm also worried about him because the opening kind of hinted at some dark things, so I don't know. But so with the manga, since it took place in the 80s, and then Griffin, he was in the Vietnam War, so they changed that in the anime so that the Griffin and Max, they were in the war for Iraq. So I'm a little like confused because it's like the Vietnam War was drafted, right? So with the war in Iraq, like I think that's volunteer. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I have no idea.
Okay, because I'm just like kind of like confused because if the war in Iraq was like a volunteer kind of thing, like why did Griffin go to war if it meant leaving behind Ash and then Ash having to like deal with being like a sex slave and all that? So I don't know. That was just one thing that kind of got my head in a yeah.
Yeah, I actually really like this episode. I think they did a good thing with Max. Like, they really played on his guilt and how that like constantly had him teetering like between self-preservation and then like going back and trying to protect Ash. And then there was like there are a bunch of moments where Ash keeps pushing him away because he doesn't want to take any pity from Max. But once he realizes that they're both kind of mourning the loss of someone close to them, he accepts his help and then opens up to him and then takes the shot with him. So I thought that was really interesting. And then there was also that foreshadowed bit of him a couple episodes stabbing the banana with a fork and then and then him stabbing one of Golzina's men in the banana with a fork.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was really good.
As soon as I saw him flip the fork around, I was like, no. And then like the camera zooms in on the character's crotch and I was like, no.
Oh,
that was
boy.
great.
Oh,
That was
boy.
a fun little moment.
Gross. Okay. So I winced.
That's the
as I
show.
heard the
That's
story.
the show,
Yeah,
Zach.
I'm sorry.
And that's banana fish.
That's banana fish. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, so sorry.
It's a good show.
Although I thought about someone getting stabbed right there with a fork, just like it's makes me kind of scared. All right. Well, that's banana fish. So let's move into something. We're kind of bouncing around here. It's kind of interesting. We're going like bad, lighthearted, and scary. Now we get to the cells at work, which I know Nusha hasn't been enjoying it, but I've been really enjoying this.
I haven't not been enjoying it. If I had to pick something to drop, it would be this one.
God, you watch like a billion shows, and this is the one. This is the one show that like brings me light in the world, and yet you're the one who wants to drop it. Fine. I get it.
I'll discuss my thoughts on it after you. Go for it.
So yeah, it's so this whole episode for Cells at Work focused on food poisoning, and we met this character, Io Sinful, who is Sinophil, I should say. She's supposed to be like a rare white blood cell who was born in the same bone marrow as white blood cell, the character that's been kind of reoccurring since the first episode. And they're basically childhood friends, is what I got out of that. I thought it was great because this character, she's voiced by Mao, who plays Luluko from Space Patrol Luluko, and Fumika from Idolmaster Cinderella Girls. People may know that as well. So, her whole goal is to protect the body while also killing parasites, but she's also kind of weak. So this whole episode is about, she's trying to keep up with white blood cell, but she of course can't do that so much. So she's kind of like trying to, keep her wits about her, despite the fact that she's kind of weaker. And we also met Basofel, who it's kind of funny because the way that he's first presented, he's standing underneath histamine, which is probably like the most acidic substance known to man. And he's just like has just an umbrella given to him by a platelet, which was I thought pretty adorable. And he is voiced by Tomokazu Sugida, who is, as people may know, Gintoki from Gintama. Also Chrome, Fire Emblem, Kyon from Haruhi Suzumiya, Ragna from Blaze Blue. He's just in a bunch of roles. He's been around since like the early 90s. So he's got quite the role here, and I liked how he played it really seriously there. But yeah, like this whole episode was great. Io Seneful, she is super adorable and had some great reactions. We fixed whatever issue that happened, and so yeah, I don't know about the audio quality, but I'll edit that out. So Dana, what were your thoughts about this episode of Cells at Work?
Okay, as I was saying, it's not my favorite episode, but it's far from being the worst. I think what really put me off was just there were a lot of explanations.
Yeah.
And like it's informative, but it kind of like took a lot of the time for the episode. But other than that, I did enjoy the fact that Eosinophile, she has this like trident-like weapon, but it's not really a trident because there's only like 2 spikes. But I kind of figured she'd be the one to take down that serpent-like parasite because trident, serpent, whatever.
Yeah. giant fish because the person ate raw seafood and apparently it was poison. It was raw. It was too raw or something. I don't know. It poisoned him.
Yeah, and then I love that they made Bazo feel this prophet dude or whatever because his presence served no purpose whatsoever,
No.
and like, but like the cell itself has yet to like be determined in terms of its function. Like that's what they said too. So it's kind of like he's just there to spew this like nonsense.
Philosophical line after line, metaphors constantly. It was ridiculous. His whole character was stupid. I do agree though that Cells at Work is going in. It's like running into a problem here where it's going to be focused too much on explaining how the body works rather than just letting the anime speak for itself sometimes, and that can definitely overwhelm viewers. It feels like.
And they also reused the scene of the blood cells running away quite a few times. I don't know if you
saw
guys
that
noticed
when
that.
they were sprinting around. I was like, oh boy, okay.
Yeah, but also when your white blood cells are childhood friends.
Yes, I love it. It was so great.
And that's it.
I love that. It was so good. Getting more characters introduced, which I'm okay with. Yeah, as long as they kind of, control that a little bit. And once again, a real lack of platelets, which is they're the stars of the show, and yet we barely got to see them once more. So hopefully we get more of them sometime soon. Constant problem there. Well, I could talk about another show that I've been watching. Chio School Road. I won't really talk much about this, just because it's just every week I'm pretty much going to be repeating the same thing over and over again. But yeah, this whole episode is about what people consider to be cool or fun, and they basically there's like, what do you want to do before you die? Like, what's on your bucket list? And Chio basically says that I want to pick up a cigarette out of the air when someone flings it outside the car window, and throw it back in and just say, "You forgot this." That's the one thing she wanted to do because it sounds so cool. And so they find the cigarette that's she wasn't able to throw it back in, so she basically carries it around. And her friend, they both take pictures of themselves just in different poses. And there's this particular one here that I thought was pretty great. But yeah, it was still pretty great. It's still pretty silly and random and fun. Manana, who's the friend, she's kind of a trash friend. Like, she's terrible, but also it kind of makes her fun to watch in the way that, they basically take advantage of each other all the damn time, which is part of the fun there. And I just, for all the strangest reasons, I've been really liking this show. So that's kind of just what I wanted to talk about that. But let's get into Deanna's favorite topic here. Let's talk about muscles. Let's talk about we are just wrapping up Shark Week, so it's important that we talk about this.
Yeah, so this episode, there is some fan service.
We're talking about free, by the way.
Oh yeah. There's some fan service. There's some fan service in the beginning with Rin waking up and eating breakfast, and like, even though it's fan service, like, I thought it was probably one of the greatest like animated scenes I've ever seen. For different reasons, but so yeah, they focused on Rin's side of the story, and he's in Sydney, Australia, and of course he has to speak in English, but I thought the English was pretty well done, and the accents were kind of there, but not too heavy. They also brought in actual English speakers to voice non-Japanese characters. So yeah, just a lot of muscles, as you can see.
There's muscles I like and muscles I don't like. I remember seeing that line there. Yeah, and overall, just the boys are all hurting about one friendship or the other, so they're gonna solve it through swimming somehow. Yeah, that's how everything's resolved. Everything's resolved through muscles and through swimming. So yeah, that's it. That's all I want to get to. Obviously, people are watching free for the fan service, but also because of the characters. So that's just part of the fun. Well, let me get into a show that I fell behind on. I didn't realize at the time, and actually, when I was watching 2 episodes of Giegi no Kitaro, it was during the same time that a 3rd episode was being put up. So once again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I will say that it did contain, among those 3 episodes, it still contained a pretty heartfelt story, and that's part of the reason why I've been having so much fun with this show. So the whole thing here is that Mana, who's the young girl that Kitaro and the crew meet along the way, she's just a normal girl who happens to see yokai. She visits this town, Sakai Minoto, in Japan for this fishing festival. And the whole thing about here is that there's this clash going on about the festival, about tradition versus new age, and they're fighting over how they want to present the festival, like get with the times kind of thing. And it's kind of interesting because Sakai Minato, that happens to be the hometown of the creator of Giegi no Kitaro. And there's this character here about a yokai that's, I'm showing a picture of him, but he's like this old man that happens to be helping humans during the Warring States period, which is the same time like Nobunaga Oda was around, called Kanibozu. And it's the stories like these that keep me watching, because there's these very sad moments attached to some of these one-off characters. Like he's just cares so deeply about the princess that he's trying to protect. He's very proud and noble, but he sees something in her and wants to protect her, like kind of a paternal
What's
way.
it like when you bite into a haichu?
Hold on.
It's really fruity and really
I've
chewy.
got like audio playing in my ear for a second. Sorry guys.
What does it sound like?
Oh my god, there was an ad playing on something else here. So people got recorded of something really weird. It was like this Japanese song. You guys can ignore
The
that.
stream is a mess.
It's a mess.
Clusterfuck of
I
an
don't know
episode.
what that was, but people listening got an earful of that. So enjoy that sound. But yeah,
This episode brought to you by
some Japanese auto song. I had an ad for like from Idola Final Fantasy Star Saga thing. Anyway, yeah, it's interesting because of these characters, and it becomes a little tragic about what happens to him. And it's one of the cool things about this is that this person has this yokai power where he spits out like this foam that turns anything into bronze. And so a lot of the characters like Kitaro and Cat Chick, they get turned into bronze. And they showed these shots of this town, Sakai Minato, that happens to have these things. And this is the shot that they showed during the break. These are actual bronze statues, and these exist. You can go to Japan, go to that area, and it's called Mizuki Shigeru Road, named after the creator. And it's cool because it gives these statues that people built in honor of the author a bit of an origin story. And I thought that was pretty cool. There's even a museum you can go to around there as well. There's just a bunch of different artwork from the series that's been around since the 60s. So the town, of course, is very proud of the history that it has with the show. And so I thought that was pretty cool. I also thought it was interesting. I didn't find this out until I was they showed a lot of sandwich, which is the sand witch, not sandwich, but it's this character that one of the yokai, and she is the same voice actor as Krillin, the Japanese version, and Kitaro's dad, who's like this eyeball, is the voice of Goku. And so Goku and Krillin are in this show as well, is what I found out, and I thought that was
That's great.
a pretty great touch there. And they talk a lot, they meet each other a lot, so you just get this a lot of this tradition here, and I love that part too. So yeah, 3 episodes, all really, really good, and it continues to be a great show, and I'm having a lot of fun watching it. So, if you guys want like a really long-running series, so far from everything I've heard from the people that have been watching the entire series so far, like since the previous ones as well, they're basically saying that it's considered the best ones yet. And so, people who are interested in getting into this series, this seems like the perfect time to do so. So, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about another long-running series that you've been watching, Deanna. Let's talk about Gintama.
Okay, I won't get too into it because it's so like deep into plot that you guys would just be confused. But this week's episode has a more serious tone, and it focused on a different group of characters that are fighting the war in space. So this is the part in the anime, or from when I read the manga, where Gintoki hardly shows up despite being the main character, because the series itself likes to focus on side characters with who come up with their own conclusions, or epiphanies about their purpose and whatever. So a character does die, and it really shows that Takasugi, that guy right there, how he has developed his character and how he cares about his comrades. He's also Gintoki's former comrade in war and current rival. So, and then also there's the dog Sadaharu. I don't know if you've seen pictures of him, but he's like this big white dog.
Yes.
So he also has this realization that there's something only he can do in this war to save everyone. So literally, like all characters have a purpose, and I'm already sad because I don't want anything to happen to Sadaharu.
No, nothing happens to the good dogs.
Yeah. So.
It's good that it's getting. I mean, obviously it's getting serious, but as you said, it's not the first time that's happened. Like the show apparently goes through waves like that, and so it sounds like though it's getting like everyone is at risk at this point because they're nearing the end of the series. Potentially, it could always come back in some form, but everybody is the writing's on the wall for everybody. It sounds like. So pretty bad there. So all the best. We'll get to know what your reaction will be next week to find out what actually happened with the next episode. So
I'm just speechless. I can't say anything.
Yeah, that's the difficult part of a show that's been going on for hundreds of episodes. Trying to get into what is happening at the very tail end can give a lot away. So just let us know how it goes. So let's get into a different show that's kind of hitting its stride once again, and it's Bato. And so I've just been really liking the fact that they're getting back into the good quality stuff. And so the whole episode is set up where they're having this friendly game with another school, a junior college, and the thing is that we're also getting introduced to so many different characters, but also so many rivalries, and I think that actually might be muddying the waters a bit because it's getting kind of difficult to follow. Like for a second I don't know why, but like for a second I thought this girl was the other twin-tailed girl from like the week or two ago that was the Desawa, and so
they're very two similar looking characters. Yeah, Connie and whatever the pink hair girl is.
Yeah.
No one cares.
Yeah, I forget. I already figured her
that's
name.
right.
I figured her name, but apparently, from what I've read, it's that this show is already deviating from the manga with the pacing. Like the manga is apparently much more fast-paced. This one's taking it easy, which makes some sense because, of course, they got to stretch this out a little bit for a show to try to get enough material. But I still feel like I'm really enjoying the intensity. And I feel like next episode, Ayano is going to get pretty scary because at the very end of the episode, this girl, she puts on a bow, ties her hair, and the way she puts the bow on, it looks just like Ayano's mother. And so, I think that might trigger it because this, I don't know. It's like Connie seems like this person that's really gonna rub it in because she basically said like, "I'll show you, like a team doesn't matter. Like I'm gonna make sure you don't enjoy having time with the team." I'm like, "What the hell is your problem, huh? What's going on here?" And she's treating her own teammates like crap. So I think that it got a little too melodramatic at times, and it's weird that they didn't just swap out after that one of her fellow students that she was with, fellow teammate, like they just were playing like 1 against 2 like a handicap match, and I was wondering like, why is she dealing with this? Was Connie just standing over there? Like I would have like stopped the match right there and then and just said, okay, we're not gonna have this. Okay, it's just if she's not gonna play Alon, I don't know why we're even doing this practice match to begin with. So I think that everything got a little heavy-handed at times, but for what it's worth, the animation quality, once again, great. A lot of sweat, like you'd expect. So it reminded me of, once again, like episode 1's quality. So there was definitely a nice mix of having, maybe a more recent episodes in the first episode quality. And I think that's a good medium for that. What was your take on it, Nusha?
Yeah, this episode was like, it screamed sports anime tropes. Like,
yeah,
we have the big powerhouse school being introduced because we need more roadblocks for our characters, and then we have like the prodigy who's all about working on her own and not playing with the team, and then she has to like be the foil to the character who's learning to be part of a team and play with friends. It's like very typical sports anime stuff, but I'm in love with the genre, so I'm always okay with that. The little bit at the end with like Ayano having like badminton PTSD when she sees her putting on like it's a little weird.
And it reminded me, it's like I was like, okay, oh, that's the woman that was with her mom, and that I think that's the same one, right? The one like in the poster.
Oh, it might be.
I think that was the same person.
Yeah,
I remember it being a blonde woman.
Didn't Connie call Ayano like sister or something?
Yeah, she called her like her big sister.
Which
But,
I thought was weird because she's obviously the older one, but
yeah.
I'm
But yeah, it was an interesting episode. There were some really good moments. Like I appreciated the fact that they gave Connie like a different looking outfit. Like it really hammers home that she doesn't consider herself like part of her team. She's like her own lone soldier, so she's got like a completely different looking uniform.
What if they're stepsisters? What if they're stepsisters? What if she remarried? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking. That's
Theories.
Yeah, theories. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and then there was also that good moment for I forget her first name. Or I think her name's Nagisa, but what's her other name? Aragaki?
Yeah.
The short-haired one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She had like her neat moment where she like her team's like terrified of this school, but then you get to see her step up and be more of like a consoling leader. Like she's able to put her team on a good foot and introduce herself and shake the hand of the leader without being scared and reserved. So we get to see her also developing, even though this episode was like a very Ayano centered episode. So I was happy with it. I guess we'll have to see how her past plays out with her mother, because I don't know if like whatever backstory they have is going to justify like these crazy melodramatic reactions like you were talking about. But we'll see. I don't know. It's too early to call it, but I had fun with this episode.
I was curious because it seemed like they were going to show the boys because apparently they're also very good, but they didn't really do much there. So I don't know. I guess they're going to continue to be on the back burner for that.
Yeah.
What was your opinion on it, Deanna?
Everyone just has beef with Ayano. That
Yeah.
poor girl just wants friends.
She just wants to be alone, you know?
Yeah,
But no.
and then like you said, Zach, I was also pissed off about Connie's poor sportsmanship. Like it was just, who do you think you are? Like just because you're some 6 foot tall girl, you know, like you think you can stomp all over people.
Oh my
But,
gosh, I got so pissed about it. I was like, why did he even bring her if she's going to be like this? Oh my god.
That means the show did a good job. You're supposed to hate her.
Ah.
We also got to see some tension from Yu. That scene when she was going to give like her other teammates water, but then she catches her senpai with Sora.
Oh, that's right.
so-
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a really small scene, but I think that's gonna eventually lead to like their own like story arc or whatever.
Yeah, what's going on with that? Because it seemed like there's a lot of tension. Once again, beef with Yano also felt like there was something there because they were picking her up from the convenience store. I also thought it was kind of funny how like it seemed like they had a lot of time before their match because they were just taking their sweet ass time going to the convenience store, just like taking a nice stroll. I'm like, you show up. Usually the match begins like maybe like 20-30 minutes. They were gone for a good while. So I don't know what was going on with that, but whatever. I just thought that was an interesting thing.
Yeah, I'm excited to see more development for different characters than just Aragaki and Ayano. So I'm excited that you and other people are getting like little character moments like that.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to be a strong suit for this is just the fact that despite the fact that they're introducing so many characters and all these rivalries, as long as they develop them properly, I'll be okay with that. I'm curious what they mean as far as the pacing doesn't match the mangas, but maybe that could be for the best. I guess we'll find out. Let's get into a show that we watched last night, me and you, Nusha, not together but separately. High Score Girl. I kind of shocked about what happened. This was a pretty powerful episode because a lot happened to Ono, the girl. So she goes through this rather traumatic event at someone her age. So she's basically being ripped away from everything she knew because her parents divorced and she's forced to return back to Los Angeles. So we talked about last week how there are all these like unreasonable demands that are being placed upon her, and she's being forced to like spend a lot of summer just doing all these classes with her senpai and learning just all these things about being a proper woman. But her only outlet was spending time at the arcade with Haro. And so it's going to be interesting to see where things go from here, because there are some characters that they showed in the opening of the anime that we didn't really get to see yet. Like there's this blonde-haired girl. So I don't know if there's going to be like something going on with that part, but I'm curious. And it did get pretty darn sad. Like I was feeling pretty bad for her, but all that happened because, clearly she was really hurt about all this, and it was the first time you really got to hear her voice. And because she's crying out about the fact that she's leaving everything behind, all of her students are really sad about that. And, just herself, like, she's going to be forced into this role again where she's kind of being propped up without her say. And so, what was your thoughts about this new show?
This episode threw me for a loop. Like, I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting this big emotional scene at the end, but I really, really appreciated it because as much as I love the first two episodes we've already seen, I don't know how much I could have taken of just the same, like, just meandering around town, playing video games, and having these quirky little moments. Like, I
Promoting the
needed this
games.
little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that, but they, like, I needed this little bit of like emotion to it. Like, this is something that I really look for in stories that are comedic in nature. Is like they also splice in like a little bit of serious moments and like drama and stuff like that. And so I'm excited to see what happens here. You mentioned the blonde hair girl in the opening, and I think the same thing. I think once she leaves, maybe he's gonna start becoming friends with her, and then we see in the opening like Ono shows up, and then all of Haruo's attention diverts to her, and then the blonde girl looks like hurt about it. And so I'm
Yeah.
interested to see that dynamic. So maybe Ono's going to come back, or maybe even though he's spending all this time with the blonde haired girl, his thoughts will always go to Ono. Like, I'm interested to see like the new dynamics that open up to it.
We're developing a video game related harem anime is kind of what it sounds like. I will say,
Oh, please no.
I will say my favorite moment is the Blanca, because the
Yeah,
part when Haru basically is getting really selfish. He's like, he was given $10 to buy a gift for Ono. For when she leaves, you know, like a present. All the different students were basically going to buy her something while she leaves. When she leaves, and he walks away and just spends 1,000 yen that he got on arcade tokens to use on himself. And so while he's playing at the arcade, all of a sudden, like, all these different characters start popping up on screen, like these inspirationals. Like, Guile does a sonic boom to the back of his head, and like, wake up! And just all these different characters show up, and then you just see Blanca. It's like,
Now it's
oh man, so inspirational, Blanca.
I cried.
I know, and like the image we're showing is just a bunch of classic arcade games. Just saying, you know, get out there, go meet her, and she's like, she's about to leave. You have to chase after her.
I was so surprised that an anime actually had this, like, kids anime with like video games and stuff had that cliche chase the woman down at the airport scene. I was so surprised.
I know, they had like Outrun showing up there.
Yeah.
They had, like just oh my gosh, it was like I was so happy about them doing that. But yeah, it was so nerdy. And just like, I recognized
Seriously.
the different games. I was just having a good time with that. So yeah, it's once again, you know, despite the fact that like the first step of the episode, like you meet they were trying to be super lighthearted about it, you know, going to an amusement park and just having a good time with that. But apparently something was bothering Ono, and we found out what it was. And so next episode, I'm kind of going to be really surprised about what's going to go on. I assume, we'll meet the blonde-haired girl and find out what's going to go on. So, but that's High Score Girl. Let's move into a show that, Deanna, I don't know, like, you seem to be sticking with the show despite the fact that you talked about dropping it. Homes of Kyoto. Is it getting better?
This episode did get better, but I'm still dropping it.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
But
Oh.
I'm dropping it, but I'll revisit it later when it's complete. Just because right now there's so many other shows that I'm watching that I'm more invested in.
Yeah.
So I'd rather just drop this now.
Doom.
But yeah, this episode is just a lot of predictable moments, and some characters' reactions were a bit much. But they did go back to like Japanese paintings and got to know more about the main duo. So
That's just it though. It's still kind of
just like I still don't really feel that much for the characters, and just the presentation isn't as engaging as another show that I'm watching that I picked up last week that I will talk about later.
Well, we can talk about it right now. We ran Suku Mogami. I can't say it the first time, but that's a very colorful looking show. I think, didn't you talk about watching this before, but you just got back into it? Is that why? Maybe I'm mistaken.
No, this
I think I've only seen
premiered
it.
last week.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is similar to Holmes, but it has better visuals and a very vibrant color palette with jazzy music despite taking place during the Edo period. So I thought that was a really cool combo. But unfortunately, similar in the sense that it's similar to Holmes where the logic is sometimes hard to follow. And like, if you imagine a thread, but it's cut in different places, it's like basically just trying to get to the resolution a lot quicker. So yeah, and I think, but what makes this show more appealing is the fact that they emphasize the value of owning antiques and paintings while bringing in a supernatural aspect, which is the Tsukimogami. These yokai-like creatures who turn into those antiques that people can rent. So, and I thought it was also really cool that there's this pre-established rule that the Tsukimogami don't directly communicate with the siblings, who are the main characters. So, basically, like, both parties listen to each other's conversations, but not really directly talk to each other. And then that's how they try to, like, solve these mysteries. But yeah, I feel more inclined to stick to this rather than Holmes because of the music, the animation, and the characters, as well as the cute Tsukimogami designs.
Yeah, I think that would that already looks far more appealing than Homes of Kyoto, which seems like another anime like that. This seems like it stands out a lot more, and so let us know how that goes, because yeah, it already looks a lot better. Like, I'm more interested in this than I ever was with Homes of Kyoto, just from the look alone. So definitely let us know about that. Well, let's talk about a show that also has unique design. Nusha, let's talk about Planet With. Was there another bizarre looking mecha this season, or is it just this Akuma looking guy that we haven't?
Yeah, we actually got to see this guy's mech. So there's always more mech. There's always this show is just banking on being as strange and bizarre as it can be, which I'm absolutely for. Which is also kind of funny because I found out in this episode that because like there was a couple of mech fights in this one, and the sound design is like amazing in this show. Like these really strange sounding sound effects whenever the mechs like fire off their moves or whenever there's like a loud impact. And so I looked into it, and apparently the show has the same sound designer as JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's Yoshikazu Iwanami, I think it is. And apparently he did all the work for the JoJo's animes, which actually really fits for this series that's like banking on just how strange it can get with its fights and plot and all that. And so as far as the plot goes, what we learned in this episode is that Kuroi, the main character, is actually from another planet called Sirius, because I guess Sirius is just a really cool name and every anime has
Oh
to have
my
something.
God.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And so apparently that planet of his was destroyed by this dragon. And that was the dragon that he actually dreamed of in the first episode. And so the reason he's going after these mechs here on Earth is because they're trying to harness the power of that same dragon that destroyed his planet. And so he's trying to stop them before Earth kind of meets the same fate. And so we learn that like that cat, the anthropomorphic cat that he's living with, actually like saved him from his planet before it was like completely destroyed. And then I think last week I complained that the main character wasn't getting too much development, like he wasn't getting his moment to shine. It was kind of focusing on all the enemies and the plot. But in this one, we actually got to see him return to school, because he hadn't been going to school since like all these UFOs and stuff started landing. And he sees that his friend, the one friend that he made, the class rep, was actually like really distraught and worried for his well-being. And so he decides to go back to school. And then she like immediately strong arms him into joining like this occult club, because she thinks he's like super into UFOs and stuff. And so he begins to meet a bunch of people from school and becomes friends with a few of them, and he actually even befriends one of the mech pilots that he's supposed to be fighting and taking down. But of course he doesn't know that he's a mech pilot at this point. And so they're setting up some really interesting fights down the line, because eventually he's going to have to fight this friend that he just made. And now, instead of just being like this bland like Avenger, he's trying to avenge his planet, but at the same time he's also creating like connections on Earth. And like you see that he's trying to find like a new home, and that maybe Earth can become that new home now that he's met these friends and has found like a place for himself. So I'm really excited. This is one of my favorite, I would say, for this season, just because of how strange and bizarre and colorful the art direction is. Like the character designs and the mechs are so zany and interesting, and the sound design is even more so. And so I'm just really excited to check out more and more episodes of this show as it goes on.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about how the presentation alone can really sell a show, and this definitely looks like it's one of those anime that kind of came out of left field, it sounds like, and surprised you. And it's good to hear that you're having a good time with it. Definitely a show for people to be watching if they need something to see, especially because it has mecha in it, and that's always cool. So, speaking of serious though, let's talk about Sirius the Jaeger. Speaking of anime that has like it's fallen in love with that name, but this is looking a lot different than the. You said this was from Sirius, this picture that we're using for the stream, and I was kind of taken aback because I did not expect it to look like this at all because it seemed a lot darker. But you said, I think Deanna, you mentioned that this is like the different forms of themselves. What was it?
It's a flashback to, like, that's the younger Yuri, whatever.
I think it's Yuli. I don't know.
Yuli?
The way they spelled is like kind of.
It's like YULIY. There's like an ampersand in there somewhere.
It's just okay. Well,
Yuli.
how'd you like the episode then, Deanna?
It's definitely a lot more interesting than previous episodes because we got to see Yuri's past. And I just want to say, his older brother looks so much better back then. Like, what the fuck is that new hairstyle right now that he has?
It's like bust in the front and long in the back.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, just there's now we understand why Yuri gets he's so passionate about like killing all these vampires because they killed basically his village and his mother. And then we see how him and his brother got separated. And apparently Yuri has this, like, I guess, werewolf power, would you say, Nusha?
I think when I read the plot, like, synopsis when I was picking what shows to pick up, they mentioned werewolves. And I want to say that the main character has, like, because they're also doing, like, at the end of the episode, you saw, like, a Frankenstein-esque creature. It seems like they're really leaning into, like, the monsters universe. And so if there's already vampires and Frankenstein, I'm willing to bet that Yuri's some kind of werewolf creature.
Yeah, this show's like a mashup of every supernatural being, and I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in ghosts or something.
Yeah.
But I think, okay, that one scene, Nusha, like, you have beef with this too. The high school girl, I don't remember her name, but
you shouldn't.
Yeah. It's like this whole, okay, so far she's just been this like character who seems to be attracted to Yuri and then is constantly stalking him. And then, like, that scene where he kind of, like, loses control and then, like, grabs her shoulders and then he's like, "You're not afraid of me?" And then she's like, "No." And then he leaves and then that's it.
Ripped from Twilight.
Yeah, and I'm just like, can we get more context on her? Like, I'm just confused as to why she's even there in the first place. But yeah, I'm not sure if the show's trying to make her to be this, like, love interest, but yeah.
It sounds like it still continues to be a middle of the road experience that hopefully will get better. But what, like, is this 3 or 4 episodes in?
This is
the third episode.
3, yeah.
Yeah, and so
it honestly wasn't bad. Like, I thought, like, okay, the main character was pretty bland and boring, and like we already knew that his backstory was going to be like, oh, my village got destroyed and now I'm trying to hunt vampires. But
as you do,
even knowing that, like, the flashback was pretty well done. I think, like, there was this one moment where him and his brother, after their village got destroyed, are like walking up this path, and then his brother just kind of starts giving out like a lesson, like, hey, when you don't use guns because it'll interfere with your sense of smell. And he's like, okay, sure. And then he gives him like another hunting lesson, and he's like, okay, sure. And then he gives him another lesson that's like, don't eat sweets before bed. And then you slowly realize that he's beginning to give him like parting lessons before he goes off and fights this creature that he knows he's not going to be able to kill. And I thought that was a really like powerful scene. Like, it kind of established that connection that he has with his brother, and it kind of puts into context like how, like, why he was so distraught when he sees his brother at the end of the second episode, even though the reveal wasn't really done too well. But I don't know, like Deanna mentioned, that love interest is just so forced. Like, we don't need it. Like, literally all we've seen of this girl is she practices kendo or some kind of sword fighting. She sees Yuri once and then immediately like falls in love. No context, nothing. And then the next scene we get is like he has this cliched scene where he like loses control, like Deanna said, and then, you know, you have the "Are you not scared of me?" and it was so forced and cliche. But aside from that, I really like what they did with the main character. Like there was this really cool scene also where like you see that he's like shutting people away. Like he's in his room and he's all mopey because in the last episode he had to kill the scientist who was like this young girl's dad, and so he feels bad about making this young girl an orphan. And so one person comes in and she tries to like talk to him and lighten him up, and then he just kind of gives her like one word answers and she's like, okay, whatever, and she leaves. And then another guy comes in and he's like, hey, I'm gonna go get lunch, you want to go get something? And he's like, no, I'm good. And you just see him kind of like push people away, like he's scared to open up to people. But then that just kind of makes it even more shitty when for some unknown reason he's going to start opening up to this random love interest character that was like ham-fisted into the plot.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh boy.
I don't know. The more she shows up, unless they give her like some serious fleshing out, like her backstory or her motivations or something, I'm going to get really pissed every time she shows up on screen. I can say that now. But I was ready to drop this show, but this episode kind of gave me a little more faith, I'll be honest.
But it sounds like you're kind of hinging on them carrying that through for the next... just the fact that it's a few episodes in and you're in that state of it, so hopefully it gets better, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a little concerned that the show might get a little convoluted at the end, or just as the show goes on, because I feel like we have multiple storylines going on with like the Jaegers or the V shipping company, and then we also have the Japanese military who's kind of showcasing this xenophobia with the foreigners, and then also with the vampires. So it's kind of like, okay, is that all connected somehow, or are we gonna have like these different plots that will converge later on, but in like the most confusing way possible?
Yeah, like there was also that samurai in that one episode.
Yeah,
what was
that too. I
I
have
don't
no
know.
idea.
I don't know what's going on. Like I thought this was just going to be a simple like hunting vampire story, and then they threw all this like political conflict, which would be cool, but I feel like they're not explaining it very well so far.
No, they're not.
Oh boy. Well, let us know how it goes, because I think that it's important that at least you guys can stick with it and just let us know how it treats you, because this was one of the most anticipated anime coming into the season, and so far it seems like they're not quite there yet, so hopefully we'll get something out of it. Well, let's wrap up.
Not a great season.
Yeah. There's some good shows, but yeah, overall it can't compare with Spring, I'll say. That's what I've learned so far. Spring was insanely good. Let's wrap it up with a show that's been actually continuing on since then, My Hero Academia. Which, boy, this was a lot of talking, and I don't know how I feel about it. So yeah, it's let me just find it. So yeah, so we're once again into the provisional licensing exam, and so yeah, they're out here trying to go after each other, and if a student is able to knock off the 3 different what do they call them, like these little
like targets
that are on the bodies with these balls, then they can progress. They pass through, and they become one of the 100 people that moves on to become official. Is it actually that they become a hero, or they just get their license? I forget what it actually is.
There's another round,
another
after
stage.
This one.
Okay,
Yeah.
That makes more sense. I was confused about how they were presented it, but apparently I wasn't paying attention to that part. But yeah, it was interesting. This episode was kind of fascinating because I did feel like there was a lot of talking, and I wasn't a big fan of that. But I did like how that they were kind of showing off how everyone is really facing a challenge with other students, including Todoroki with these Naruto wannabes, with these ninjas with their little like headbands on. I'm like, oh, even the shot of him standing with a bunch of ninja on the different like rock cliffs, I was just like, this is straight from Naruto. This is kind of stupid. I will say Inasa, the guy with the ability to control wind, he was the coolest guy in the entire episode. I thought he was amazing, and I loved how he like took out 120 people at once with his wind powers. Definitely the guy who's going to stand out because he's like the number one student who had the ability to join UA but decided not to, and I assume we'll find out more about the reason why that's the case going on. But yeah, a lot of talking, less action, but we also had this transforming quote-unquote molester girl that they showed during it was funny how she was called out for that too. But yeah, I assume she has a hidden identity, but yeah, it's just basically going trying to I don't know, provoke Deku a lot, and learning about why he wants to be a hero and what his powers are and all these things that are happening. Also trying to get into his like make mind games and trying to like make him like figure out like who's his actual friend and who's like this fake imposter person. So I don't know if they'll explore that further, but boy, it was quite the episode. What was your take on this, Deanna?
Every girl is coming after Deku.
Yep, that's kind of what I got too. They're all happy about him.
Yeah, but we had that Uraraka and Deku moment, even though it wasn't really her. And I'm sure shippers are going crazy about that.
Oh yeah, like when she was like leaning in, like about to hit his target, I'm like, okay, this is not. I was even confused. Like, wait, what's she doing? Is she? I don't know.
Yeah. But Passion Dude is no joke. His hero outfit reminded me of M. Bison from Street Fighter.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny. And then also the exam proctor's voice, like, can you imagine just hearing him constantly talk during a stressful situation? Like, it's kind of like, can you please shut the fuck up?
I love him.
I know what I
He's
have
like
to
just
do.
this jaded asshole.
Yeah.
Like he's seen so many wannabe heroes, just like I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was great.
Yeah, but I love that the show, it's showing that no one is really OP and that each student has somewhat of an equal fighting chance to come out on top. So I appreciate that.
What was your feelings, Nusha, on this?
I mean, I always love episodes of My Hero, but yeah, it was a little talky, especially for like this free for all battle royale. You expected a little more, but yeah, like Deanna, you said last week, this is like really broadening the scope and like to see just how strong someone like Inasa is, even though we were led to believe that like Bakugo and Todoroki were like these untouchable pillars. Like seeing how Inasa is just able to like one shot all these people was really humbling, I guess, to us as a viewer. And then something I really appreciated was the way that these different heroes were adapting their abilities to fight UA. Like you saw like those ninja guys using tungsten because they're heat resistant against Todoroki. And so I really like that kind of disadvantage that the main characters are at now. But it was a good episode. I appreciated it.
That's good. I mean, yeah, it's. I hope that they get things back to where it was. But seeing Todoroki, like I said, getting his back pushed against the wall, I'm curious to see what's going to happen next episode. It's no doubt that he's going to pass through because of course he is. Maybe Minato won't, but we'll find out. So, yeah. My Hero Academia continues to thrill, and I'm glad at least the action's back, less of the the downtime and more of the action, and I appreciate that. Maybe less talking, that'd be also great. Yeah, and it also seems like the fan service is also back. I noticed. So let's get into
Definitely a shonen.
yeah. So that's the recap of the week of all the different shows we've been watching. So let's get into the show that we've been that our watch-along, which is Trigun, episodes 7 and 8. I assume you all seen the episodes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so let's talk about how great the show is getting. I am so excited about what's been happening. So these two episodes, it was cool. It was actually perfect because they were. It's still a kind of a carryover from the previous episode when Vash was able to get the plant rented again. So he decides to leave on this giant like steamship that runs all on the ground, which I thought was pretty cool looking. But it's while he's on this ship, he gets attacked by the Bad Lad Gang, which is a great name for a band. But they're like the big. So far, they represent like the biggest threat Vash has had to face thus far. And there was some. It was actually kind of cool because like they're wearing these costumes that have like this neon lit to them, and so when they're in the dark, it's actually a pretty cool costume. So and this boy who Vash encounters on the ship, who he thinks is a stowaway, is actually a member of this gang, led by what I can only describe as a JoJo character. You look like someone from a JoJo show. And I thought it was kind of cool because it's Kite. Kite's the boy, and it's voiced by Rika Matsumoto, who is the voice of Ash from Pokemon, and also, of course, a member of Jam Project. And I thought that was kind of cool to hear her voice in a young boy and it not be Ash at this time. And so I thought
Ash's voice actor is a member of Jam Project?
Yes, it's the same person. One of the
I did not
founders.
know that.
Yeah, Rika.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And you get some of that, like kite scenes later in the show. You're like, yes, okay. This is actually, I think this is pre-Jam Project, so that makes some sense. And I thought it was great because we also got this moment during the show, which I really appreciate the fact that, despite the fact that this is a single episode format, kind of similar to Cowboy Bebop, like where every episode is supposed to be kind of encapsulated, there's also this overarching narrative that they continue to explore, and it works really well. So like during the show, we meet this girl, this woman that Vash clearly knew from his past. And the way that during the show, Kite is given like this kind of this walkie-talkie kind of thing, and they said it's like, you have this really old technology. And they explored in the past, of course, that, he didn't know, he has amnesia, Vash has amnesia, so he doesn't know exactly what era he's from, like how long he was gone. So clearly it sounds like this was like a way long time ago. And there's this woman named Rem, and, he wakes up and he starts to cry. And so clearly there's a strong relationship, and he sort of talks about it, how he promised that he wouldn't kill anybody, because he's basically, I guess he's in a state of sin, and he wants to like forgive himself, and he made promises that he won't hurt anybody else. And so clearly he's got like this very tragic history that he's trying to move on from. And a lot of this is backed up by, we got to experience a lot more in these two episodes, how great the soundtrack is, like some like the Spanish guitar that's playing sometimes, the piano playing. It's really great. Even on that duel that they had on the back of the ship between the game leader and Vash, that was also perfectly executed. I did find it kind of funny that they made this comment about the game leader about you're too soft. It's like, you just killed a helmsman in cold blood just a little bit ago. I don't know how soft he is if he's like willing to murder, kind of whatever. They try to make it sound like, he saved all these people. It's like, he was about to kill them all at the same time. So I don't know if I should feel sympathy for this dude. But yeah. It really is ramping up, and I'm really enjoying Trigun so far. I'm glad this is I keep saying this every week, but I'm really happy that we're watching this show, because it's making me really understand why people enjoyed this so much back when it came out, and still do to this day. So Deanna, what were your thoughts on these episodes?
Yeah, I think we're getting into the first series arc of the series, because previous episodes have just been like a single like story that has a resolution, but with this one, these two episodes, they connected. It was like a continuation, and we got to learn more about Vash, but also I thought Kaito and Vash had a great dynamic, and I feel like maybe Vash saw himself in Kaito, Kaito being like uncertain about his future, while Vash is always thinking about the past, or at least getting dreams about it. So I wonder if Kaito is going to make frequent appearances in future episodes. But I think one of my favorite moments was when Meryl and Millie, they were in disguises, and they basically saved Vash. And I love that they're essentially side characters, but they have agency and sometimes provide comic relief, or at least Millie does. So they're not just idle characters, or like they're not just there to balance the gender ratio or whatever.
No, they actually played an important, like just like last episode when Millie, when they both had like all these guns out, and they're important. They're there for a reason.
Mm-hmm. And also I noticed that I guess this is the first time that we're seeing people actually getting killed, and that Vash, he's like really trying not to like kill anyone, and he like freaks out when he injures someone. So that goes into how he doesn't want to like kill anymore, and like made that promise. And then also that quote, "The ticket to the future is always blank." What are your guys' thoughts on that quote?
That they get to write it in, I guess, is what they're saying, like a blank check. It's like you get to basically fill out how you want, the way you want it to be shown. And so I guess that's just, I guess it's just a metaphor, is what my take was on that. I don't know about you, Nusha.
I saw it as like a way of saying people can always atone. Like you can always create like a future that you want. Like that's what he tells Kite, even though Kite was like, I've done all these horrible things. I've killed all these people, but I almost called him Trigun. Vash tells him, Vash says, no, like atoning is possible and you can still make up for what you did and lead a fulfilling life. That's what he's trying to do at the end of the day as well. And that's probably why he doesn't kill either, is because he also believes that these people can probably atone and lead fulfilling lives. And I think that's kind of like a big part of his character that we learned about in these past 2 episodes.
And that was just, it seemed relevant because they're on a train too.
Yeah, I thought that was well done. I thought something that was really cool was like in the beginning, there was that scene where they try and send women to go sleep with him.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and he just
like
feigned sleep.
he which is really interesting because like the entire series passes him off as like this horn dog that's like willing to jump into bed with anyone, but then as soon as the opportunity presents itself, he like fakes to be asleep and he doesn't actually want to do that. And then it's no coincidence that later we get these flashbacks about Rem, so probably she's like a lost love interest or something like that. And it also makes you wonder, it also makes you wonder like what else that he's doing is also like this act, this like mask that he's putting on just to like cover up for how he actually feels.
Yeah, he's definitely put a lot on airs about the way he's presenting himself publicly versus what he does privately. And so, yeah, I mean, it kind of speaks to the larger picture that there's this huge misunderstanding about why he's got this huge bounty on his head. I mean, because it does go back to the fact that there was that big catastrophe that happened, that woman, the chief engineer for the company that tried to fix that plant from the previous episode, there's this huge event that left nearly 2 million people homeless. And, that's really his first big crime, was that, at least that's what they said. And so, and that's kind of led from there. So clearly he wasn't like this villain, this criminal back when he was with Rem. It sounds like this kind of occurred, what seems to be not that long ago, because that woman wasn't that old or anything. So it could have been like, maybe 18, 20 years ago, prior to the events of where it's at right now. So I'm very interested to see what else they do to sort of like drop all these pretenses about what Vash really is, or what the type of person he is, as you said.
What did you think of the villain? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what did you guys think of Brilliant Dynamite Neon? What was his name? The gang leader?
I'll just say the gang leader. I forgot his name, but yeah.
How do you forget that name?
He was a jerk. Just all I remember. So
I kind of liked him at the end. I don't know, because like the entire time he was an asshole. Don't get me wrong, and he definitely
killed the
people.
guy who was steering the ship.
He did, but like he's not okay. I can't say he's not redeemable because I just went on that spiel about everyone being able to atone, but he was a consistent character. Like
Was he?
He appreciated, he was. He like appreciated people that stuck to their ideals and their beliefs. That's like when he killed the operator, he did it when he tried to protect the passengers. And he said, this is when you're shining the most brilliantly, so I'm going to kill you to preserve that memory. And then the same thing happened at the end where like he fights or he has a duel with Vash and then he loses, but he has every opportunity to just kill Vash right there because his wounds open up. But he's like, no, I'm a man of my word. I'm a man of my principle. Because I lost that duel, I have to go. And so like I thought he was a pretty consistent, like interesting character, even though he was an asshole to the end. I don't know. I appreciated it.
No, I totally get that. I get where you're coming from on that, and I understand what you mean. I think it's going to be interesting to see if we get more characters like that, because we have been getting characters like that in the past. Like, I forget his name because I'm terrible with names, but that guy who came along and I'm already kind of losing my train of thought here, but the guy who had that sheriff that was Ron, who came in and killed all those people, and he dug all those graves, who were trying to build up this town, and he took over. Like the guy that one guy who showed up and basically wanted to get his revenge on him for doing so. Like, they all got their own backstory, and I think that's important. They're not just one-dimensional characters for the most part. You've also got this guy who's not only who was this gang leader in the past, but he isn't any longer. He's this this father, and that's why he didn't decide to kill him at that point, because he's got his own responsibilities to deal with. I can't say good things about that Kentucky group or whatever it was, the guy with like the gigantic head and the huge body. Like, there's nothing really redeeming about them in a couple episodes ago. But yeah, it's for the most part, absolutely, they put a lot of emphasis on these characters themselves. And like, I hate to keep comparing it, but like Cowboy Bebop did great at that as well, and this seems like it's definitely of like the same caliber, you know, and I think that that's what will help me stick with this show. So let's on that note, since we've been having some streaming issues lately, let's just go ahead and wrap it up right there. It's been once again a heck of a week in terms of anime, and I'll looking forward to see what shows you guys decide to drop for next week. Sounds like Homes of Kyoto is one of them. Maybe Cells at Work for you, Nusha, potentially, but we'll have to see what happens there. In any case, I'm excited to see what goes on. And that's it for this edition of Anime Review. Thank you, Nusha. Thank you, Deanna, for being a part of this, as always. And everyone out there, catch us next week for yet another edition of Anime Review. Bye, everyone.
Later.
Bye.